A few years ago, the idea of replacing your laptop with your phone sounded like one of those tech dreams that never quite materializes, like flying cars or fully paperless offices. Every year companies teased it, every year YouTubers tried it for a week, and every year it ended the same way. Frustration, compromises, and a quiet return to a traditional desktop. But something has changed recently, and it's not just marketing hype this time. Android, combined with Linux, is no longer a quirky experiment for power users. It's quietly, steadily becoming a real desktop replacement, and if you haven't looked at it lately, you might be shocked at how close we are to that future actually working. Picture this. You walk into your room, drop your phone onto your desk, connect one cable, and instantly you have a full desktop interface on your monitor, real windows, a taskbar, multiple apps, side by side, a mouse cursor that feels native, not emulated, a keyboard that just works. You open a browser with dozens of tabs, edit documents, run a terminal, maybe even compile code or edit a video. And the device powering all of it is the same thing that fits in your pocket. Not a laptop, not a mini PC, your phone. That scenario used to feel like science fiction. Now it's surprisingly normal. To understand why this is finally happening, we have to talk about how Android and Linux have slowly been merging in ways most people never noticed. Android has always been based on the Linux kernel. Underneath the apps and icons and gestures, it's been Linux this whole time. But for years, that Linux core was locked away, hidden behind a very phone-centric interface. You couldn't really access it, and you certainly couldn't use it like a traditional desktop environment. It was Linux in name only for most users. But recently, developers, hardware makers, and even Google itself started opening those doors. At the same time, phones have become absurdly powerful. If you look at the raw specs of modern flagship phones, they're basically small laptops. 8 or more CPU cores, desktop-class GPUs, 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM, fast NVMe storage, and all of it optimized for efficiency. A mid-range Android phone today can outperform laptops from just a few years ago. So the hardware excuse is gone. It's no longer that phones can't handle desktop tasks. They absolutely can. The real problem was always software and usability. That's where Linux environments and desktop modes come in. Features like Samsung DeX, Motorola Ready For, and similar desktop interfaces from other brands started as gimmicks. You plugged your phone into a monitor and got a weird, limited desktop that felt like a stretched-out tablet UI. It wasn't convincing. But fast forward to today, and these systems have matured. Windows snap properly. Apps resize naturally. Keyboard shortcuts work. Drag and drop feels normal. You can forget you're using a phone after a while. And that's the key. It stops feeling like a trick and starts feeling like a computer. Then there's the Linux side of the equation. Tools like Termux, Proot environments, and full Linux distributions running inside containers have turned Android into something much more flexible. You're not just running mobile apps anymore. You can literally install Ubuntu, Debian Arch, or Fedora inside your phone and launch real desktop software. We're talking about Firefox, LibreOffice, GIMP, VS Code, even full development stacks with compilers and package managers. Suddenly, it's not just a phone pretending to be a desktop. It actually is one. Imagine opening a terminal on your Android device and running the same commands you'd run on your laptop. Installing packages with apt or pacman, using Git, running Python scripts, building projects for developers and power users. This is huge. You no longer need a separate machine just to do real work. Your pocket device becomes your main computer. That's a fundamental shift in how we think about personal computing. What's fascinating is how natural it feels once you try it. You connect your phone to a USB-C hub, plug in a monitor, keyboard, mouse, maybe even Ethernet, and everything just comes alive. The desktop pops up. You launch a browser. You start working. There's no boot time, no waiting for updates, no separate device to manage. It's your phone, instantly transformed. When you're done, you unplug and take your entire computer with you. All your files, apps, sessions, everything, already in your pocket. That kind of portability is something traditional desktops can't compete with. For students, this is potentially game-changing. Instead of buying both a phone and a laptop, you could realistically get away with just one device. Pair it with a cheap monitor or use screens available at school or work, and you've got a full workstation. For people in developing regions or tight budgets, that's a big deal. A single device that handles communication, entertainment, and productivity is far more accessible than maintaining multiple machines. And let's talk about battery life, because this is another hidden advantage. Phones are built to be insanely efficient. They sip power compared to laptops. So when you're running a desktop environment off your phone, you're often using less electricity than a traditional PC. Some setups even let the phone charge while docked, so it's always ready to go. The whole experience feels lighter, quieter, cooler. No fans screaming. No bulky power bricks. Just a small slab of glass doing everything. The app ecosystem has also evolved. Android apps themselves are getting better at scaling. Many now support larger screens, windowed modes, and keyboard input properly. You're not stuck with giant blown-up mobile interfaces anymore. Plus, web apps have become incredibly powerful. Tools like Google, Docs, Figma, Notion, and countless others run perfectly in a browser. For many people, that's 90% of their workflow right there. Add Linux apps for the remaining 10%, and suddenly there are very few tasks you can't handle. There's also something liberating about having Linux under the hood. You're not completely locked into a walled garden. You can tweak things, automate tasks, run scripts, customize your environment. You can turn your phone into a server, a development machine, or a lightweight workstation. That level of control is something Android inherited from Linux, and it's what separates this setup from something like a tablet with a keyboard. It feels more open, more hackable, more yours. Of course, it's not perfect yet. There are still rough edges. Some apps don't scale well. Certain peripherals can be finicky. Heavy workloads like serious video editing or AAA gaming can push the limits. And setting up a full Linux environment isn't always beginner-friendly. But here's the important part. These issues feel like growing pains, not deal-breakers. 5 years ago, the whole idea felt impractical. Now it feels close, like we're just polishing the last few details. What's really interesting is how this shift changes the meaning of computer. For decades, we thought of computers as big stationary boxes, or at least clamshell laptops. Your phone was just a companion device. Now the roles are flipping. The phone is becoming the main computer, and everything else is just an accessory. The monitor, keyboard, and mouse aren't the computer anymore. They're just I/O devices you plug into your real computer, which you carry in your pocket. This also has implications for privacy and security. Instead of syncing data across multiple devices, you're just using one. Fewer copies of your files floating around. Fewer things to manage. Everything is centralized. Lose your dock or monitor. No problem. Your actual data never leaves you. It's a strangely elegant solution. Tech companies seem to sense this direction too. USB-C everywhere. Better external display support. More desktop-style features and Android updates. Even Google experimenting with more serious window management and Linux integration. These aren't random features. They're stepping stones toward convergence. The line between phone and PC is dissolving. If you think about it, we've been heading here all along. Phones got more powerful every year. Laptops got thinner and more efficient. Operating systems borrowed ideas from each other. Eventually, the gap was bound to close. And now we're at the point where the difference between a phone chip and a laptop chip isn't as massive as it once was. The same ARM architecture runs everything. The same Linux foundations power both worlds. It was only a matter of time before they merged. So the next time someone says you need a full desktop computer for real work, it's worth questioning that assumption. For a huge number of people, Android plus Linux already covers everything they do. Browsing, writing, coding, editing, streaming, managing files, all of it, and it fits in your pocket. That's not a compromise anymore. That's progress. We might look back a few years from now and laugh at how many devices we used to carry around. Phone, laptop, tablet, maybe even a desktop at home. It'll feel excessive. The future probably belongs to a single personal computer that just changes shape depending on how you use it. Handheld when you're mobile. Docked when you're working. An Android with Linux underneath is quietly becoming that device. So if you haven't tried it yet, maybe it's time. Plug your phone into a monitor, install a Linux environment, and see what happens. You might be surprised at how quickly it stops feeling like an experiment and starts feeling like your main computer. And when that happens, you realize something big has shifted. Not with a flashy announcement or a dramatic launch, but slowly, steadily, almost invisibly. Android and Linux didn't just get better. Together, they grew up into a real desktop replacement, and the future of personal computing might already be sitting in your pocket.